That's such a lovely introduction. I'm Jess. I'm going to do some poems for you, starting with this one. My mum always thought I'd get a job with the Labour Party, write a novel in the evenings. Except I was 21 and had just been to a Kate Tempest gig, so 2 weeks before graduation I told her that I decided to become a poet. And it was all going to be very exciting. In my garret, cigarettes and notebooks. Think Nemo in Bleak House, but with more Leonard Cohen. I'd get a cat, have a string of lovers, beat back the literati from the front door just as soon as I was discovered by The Guardian. And age 30, I have a husband, a dog, and every so often I appear in the Leicester Mercury. The novelty of telling my partner's parents, friends that I'm a writer for a living has worn off. Now I just crumble into vague and babbling embarrassment. If I can't face it and will never see them again, I say that I'm an English teacher for fear that they'll ask, oh, have you written anything that we would have heard of? No. Not unless you've got a good memory for vintage YouTube videos. Even T.S. Eliot kept his job in the bank, didn't wander blindly with swaggering enthusiasm into the abyss. How I despise all of those quiet girls I went to school with, whose mothers always said they couldn't come swimming because they had too much homework to do, whose profile pictures now show them swimming in the Bahamas with two privately educated daughters they can afford to raise, not camping in a field with their parents who they themselves were hoping that the time it would bring freedom from weekends away with their permanently broke and scruffy youngest. In response to the news of my future career path, my mum asked me why I felt more people didn't become full-time freelance performance poets. Because they're boring and they probably never thought about it and maybe they just knew they'd be rubbish. Because, Mum, some of us are born to be accountants and some of us are born to be artists. This too was my response when drinking in the student union. Specky men would make fun of my Mickey Mouse degree. And they are now working in banking. Oil. Managing wind farms off the coast of France. I go round to my mum's house once a week to see what she's got going off in her fridge that I can eat. Who knew there was so much to pay for as an adult? That a pension wasn't something as far off as my own mortality. Lidl and Aldi have become the lifeblood of my existence. My optimistic savings accounts are long ago depleted and now only service my car at the tried and tested half-price garage. I pace the house searching for possessions I can sell on eBay and still, nobody wants a copy of Sliding Doors on VHS. But who needs disposable income when you have got 3 of a 5-act, self-aware yet deprecating one-woman show mapped out in your heads? Who needs a house, a mortgage, gas and electricity, a phone, the internet, a car and foreign holidays, a laptop, a telly, savings for when the boiler breaks, trainers, new clothes, insurance against all the things that can and do go wrong, the world's smallest but inexplicably most expensive dog, when you have so many feelings and the means to express them through the power of art and a bloody well-crafted poem. Thank you very much. I'm currently touring a show which is called A Self-Help Guide to Being in Love with Jeremy Corbyn. I really like to divide every audience that I meet. And it's about my love-hate relationship with the Labour Party and the division of the left and how I really worry that we'll never get another Labour government again because the Labour Party is able to tear itself apart over seemingly anything. But I was aware when I was sort of doing just normal gigs that was quite a sort of niche market to carve out for myself. So there were also poems in it on other themes, like this one, which is about how much I hate my next door neighbours. And I think I might have hugely misjudged doing it at this night to a room full of students, but let's see how we get on. The walls are thudding. Like my least favourite band Through Mud, this is like being stuck in the dance tent at Glastonbury 2016 when it had rained for 4 days solidly, and I'd had cystitis since we'd got there, so I'd just had the one green tea all evening. Except on top of the pudding is their I don't give a fuck laughing, and they don't give any fucks. Because they are so young, no offence, they believe the world owes them something. And every time we've been round to ask them to turn it down, they tell us why should they have to change anything about themselves just because they live next door to these two idiots, and I hate them. And the bed is moving. Inch by inch across the floor. We have been round 6 times since Tuesday, and the one with so much lip liner she looks like a Star Wars villain always answers, and she's always wearing this sort of lacy negligee, and I want to say, you are a student. Where are your worn down trackies and Subway stained t-shirts? What woman who isn't Holly Golightly has any use for this sort of see-through undergarment? But I don't, because I tried that approach last week, so now I'm just sobbing in my slippers in the street, and it may as well be raining for how pathetic this is, because 3 days ago I promised myself that she would not reduce me to this, but she has, because she's won, and I don't care, I just need some sleep. I tell her I'm in a school tomorrow, I'm up at 6 tomorrow, I'm doing a 12-hour day tomorrow, except tomorrow is the day and the sun's coming up and she's laughing at my bleeding and slams the door in my face. We take back to our beds and he says, maybe we should just call the police. So we try that. Twice. They don't come. They just tell us that due to budget cuts, there are only ever 2 officers on duty on any one day. And I hate you, Theresa May. You try living in this 2 up, 2 down terrace where there is no escape from blurred lines for a 3rd time. I say, let's try and do some yoga breathing. But on the 3rd exhalation, another speaker kicks in. He says, we are intelligent adults. We just need to stay strong. But she is just so young. And the first time that we chanced a complaint, she scoffed at our 9:30 bedtime routine. But when you're 18, 10 Jaeger bombs and an hour's sleep is a bloody luxury. And then 10 years creeps by and you're happy with a small wine. And I'm just going to stay up to watch the headlines. So I wish this lip-line girl child the worst night since she downed her first Smirnoff Ice. I wish her empty dance floors. I wish her lights as bright as a Topshop changing room, you can see every makeup mistake. And is that a grey? I like grey hair, it's got a lot of my own, makes me feel like Rogue from X-Men, but she won't, she will care. Oh, I want her to care. I want her to care as much as I do at 6 a.m. when the alarm's just gone off and I've been asleep since 5:45. I wish her stale wine. I wish her Agadoo played 6 times. I wish her drunk mum appearing in the same club out for her book group's bi-monthly social. I wish her a crying best mate who just bumped into her ex. I wish her closed pubs and smudge mascara. I wish her skirt tucked into her knickers, with friends too callous to tell her. So it just stays that way for hours. And they're her worst pants. Bought for her in year 9 by a nan from a sale in BHS, the one saved for the days and the washing machine's broken, a state of emergency has been called. They are yellowed and baggy with long snapped elastic. They used to have a pattern of dogs on, but after 5 years of washes, the picture's long gone. Now they're just covered in questionable, faded brown spots. I hate her. As much as she hates me. And I hope this poem gets back to her, because I just want some fucking sleep. Thank you. You can tell that you come to these a lot because you clap for just the right amount of time for me to have a drink and put it down again, so thank you very much, that's very kind of you. So I'm touring this show about the Labour Party and Jeremy Corbyn for 6 months. The first day that we started touring, the independent group ripped the Labour Party apart within 24 hours, so I have had some edits to do on the road. And every theatre that we go to, it feels like the elephant in the room is Brexit. And I'm somebody who feels very sad and very scared about Brexit and about the toxic divisions which have opened up in our society. And it feels like we are no longer left and right, we are just leave and remain. And it feels as though we are increasingly becoming desensitised to the violent rhetoric which is used against politicians. It's almost as though it's become normal for MPs to be called Nazis in the streets, or to receive death threats, or for British soldiers to use a picture of Jeremy Corbyn as target practice. But I think my biggest frustration with Brexit is the way the Tories use Brexit as a distraction from some of the worst things that they are doing to this country. Because while we're talking about Brexit, we're not talking about the huge rise in homelessness they've caused. While we're talking about Brexit, we're not talking about the systematic destruction of the public sector. And while we're talking about Brexit, we're not talking about the privatisation of the NHS and the education system. I come from a family of teachers. I'm really interested in education. It's something I've written about quite a lot in the past. And it seems to me now that we have an education system which is designed for young people who are white, middle class, upper class, able-bodied, neurotypical. And if you don't fit into that bracket, then it is not a system which is going to support you, which seems deeply unfair to me. So this is a poem about that, and it is about former Education Secretary Nicky Morgan. Do you remember Nicky Morgan? No, she's very forgettable. She came after Gove, and anyone after Gove would have seemed really normal, but she did seem particularly normal. She seemed like somebody who might just live down your street, and then she started speaking, and some of the things that she said while she was Education Secretary. She said she felt that anyone who had ever studied an arts or humanities subject would be held back for the rest of their lives. She said she wanted all young people studying in this country to be above average. That's not how averages work, Nikki. And she said, you know when kids are in year 6 and they do their SATs and afterwards they have like a little post-test party, so they watch Frozen and they eat ice cream. She said that those should be banned because she's a witch. So this is a poem about that. I feel, as a feminist, I feel deeply uncomfortable saying that about Nicky Morgan, but I feel like she's got a lot of people celebrating her. She doesn't need me to celebrate her, and she's done some very questionable things. So this poem about that is called National Average. For the moment they take their first breath, they are marked in line with the baby next to them for weight and height, and the day they take their first steps against their age and class and social standing. So when they're toddling in line with the baby next to them on the first day of reception, they are ready to be graded, tried and tested, marked in line with the national average, where every child must stand above the national average, because where's progress unless based on a handful of flimsy statistics? And school halls are crammed with podgy-limbed toddlers, wondering who took their sandpits away, replaced it with a paper and a pen they've yet to learn how to hold. And later, when they're told their score, their mark, their grade for their baseline assessment, they are learning their first lesson in how to deal with consequences of actions they weren't even aware of making. But now we know that you are John. Your mum took you to the theatre from the age of 2, played your Mozart while you were still in the womb, before you even had the consciousness to understand this would stand you in good stead for this day. And you are Hayley, whose house was a little more complicated, never taken to the theatre to see the adaptation of Dogs Don't Do Ballet, whose parents scrabbled down the sofa for pennies and decided whether to spend them on heating or eating, given it was now coming up to the 3rd of January. Done and dusted. Thank God we managed to get that sorted. Now carry that scorecard with you until the next time you're tested, and in the meantime they are told to express themselves in active voices, using conjunctive adverbs and subordinate clauses, and learn history chronologically, which means it's intensely boring as soon as you get past the dinosaurs. Here comes another round of tests and assessments. This time they are just old enough to hold on to the idea. If they don't do well enough, or they're probably just not good enough, at least not as good as that golden pie in the sky called the national average, ever unreachable except for the most privileged. In year 6, we were still picking up bugs and wetting our knickers from too much giggling. Now I stand in primary school corridors lined with signs saying, shh, exam in progress. Like the ones you see during your GCSEs, your A-levels, and the final year of your degree. And these are scrape-kneed children, with remnants of dinner around their faces, swapping football stickers in the queue for the exam papers, and even the ones awarded more time. The slow readers, the ones with special needs and statements, spend it watery-eyed in empty classrooms, looking pleadingly from the teacher to the sunshine outside, remembering a time when just painting a picture of your goldfish was enough to get you a well done. Because surely it's not meant to be such a damn hard slog. It's meant to be numbers and words and science experiments, playing and painting and chanting the wives of Henry VIII, red puff faces and scorch hot sports days, and celebrating the achievements of each individual, whether that's fractions or dancing or just knowing all the songs from the Jungle Book. It's not meant to be tests and stress and impossible questions. Just let them enjoy your time, and school is supposed to be fun with your mates and working out what you're good at and not always being the best. And when you don't know, well, a guess as good as being correct, so just let them get on with it. Don't brand them with levels and marks that do nothing but make them feel thick. Remember that they are children. So let kids be kids and not some national average statistic. Touring this show, I'm really trying to sort of, because obviously it's about politics and the Labour Party, and I'm touring for 6 months, I'm trying to kind of really keep up with kind of what's going on so that I can update it whenever I need to, and it means that I'm paying a lot of attention to the news, and I'm finding it very sort of overwhelming and feeling increasingly quite kind of worn down about it. And I just think that in this day and age of rolling social media and 24-hour news, it's very easy to feel quite worn down by the state of it all. And I think it's really important to try and find optimism wherever you can, in whatever form that takes for you. My optimism is very middle class. It comes from knowing that if you look back through history, it's always during times of austerity and hardship that comes some of the most interesting and innovative creativity. And I'm your stereotypical lefty when it comes to anything which describes itself as being protest art. Like, I love protest art. I love like a Billy Bragg song or a Ken Loach film. And there was a show which was touring last year, which came to Leicester where I live, so it definitely would have come to Birmingham. And it described itself as being protest arts which will empower the most vulnerable people in society to stand up against their oppressors. Brilliant. It's charging £23 a ticket. This is a poem like that, it's called High Art. Now, this starts with a grammatical mistake which no one has ever really noticed except my mum, and she made such a big deal about it that I'm quite self-conscious of it, but I can't change it because it ruins the rhyme scheme. Me and Alison went to see it. After all the hype that it got on Twitter, protest art meets physical theatre, and Alison had a spare ticket. And at Glastonbury that summer, I'd heard one of Pussy Riot speaking about it, which means that I immediately ticked every white, middle class and artsy box of its demographic. I don't know what I expected. I guess I was hoping for fury, to feel the energy that drives protests forward, for red flags, chants and barricades, or the feelings I have for Corbyn, a humble tongue-in-cheek jibe of the division of the left, or at least a reinforcement of my own frustrated echo chamber. What we got was a stage of naked men setting things on fire, with no explanation. Might have been a metaphor, I don't know, I was too busy making a mental risk assessment. A man was stabbed in the leg and then hung up from the lighting rig. He then proceeded to piss on the rest of the cast below, and after the piss came the spit, the blood, the vomit. It was real, you could smell it, then torture, then screaming, then beating, all set to a background of strobe lights and sweating and swearing and drowning, followed by a Q&A. Where no one could think of a single question. And all of this went on with not one hint of an interval for 120 minutes. And we were meant to be shocked, which I was to start off with, but after a 15-minute silent fight scene all done in mime, the impact wore off until boredom saw me counting the seats, eyes glazed, trying to recreate that episode of Supervet I was missing. And when it finally ended, the actors appeared nonchalant, clothed, mainstream and waving, and the tour list now let down from the lighting rig told us that this show had been inspiring. He said he was giving us permission to go create change in our own communities, and the audience, they love this. The applause, it was cacophonous until he was shouting over the rapture, a reminder that we should not stand for oppression. We should not stand for budget cuts, the bedroom tax, payday loans and zero-hour contracts. We should not stand for the rich getting richer while the poor use food banks. And like he was Ken Loach of the BAFTAs, the audience put down their glasses of Shiraz for a standing ovation, up on their feet from seats that cost them 23 quid a ticket. And they left with renewed activism, ready to fight, at weekends and on bank holidays, from Twitter and on the commute. No more Starbucks, no more Amazon. We'll be more intelligent about where we get our news. And in a review the next day, The Independent said that this was a 5-star example of art house theatre through the eyes of Russian postmodernism. So we're just going to keep retweeting that until the government has fallen. And in the meantime, the Daily Mail will continue to fill its front pages with hate speech, make a mockery of the EU-loving liberal elite, and The Guardian will revel in their favourite headline that protest art is dead. No more Billy, no more Sex Pistols, no more angry young men, so instead it exists in 50-foot glass buildings where the tickets cost the same as a weekly shop. And even if you make it to your seats, you need a PhD in art history for it to make any sense. So show me the link between a naked man in a motorbike helmet and a better funded NHS, or a stage full of bodily fluids and a solution to the refugee crisis. Because don't we need protest art that's relevant, that speaks to the many and not the few, that's subsidised and energising and funny and thrilling and dirty and dark and tragic and taboo, that's taken out of stuffy spaces, put in places it can be discovered, in parks and pubs, community centres and open mics, on the telly, on the BBC, in living rooms, at folk nights, on the internet, on Instagram, on YouTube clips, not just under stage lights. If you're going to talk to me about oppression, then go ahead. Have a man pissing on himself from the lighting rig, but also show me food parcels, homelessness, the unravelling of a safety net, job centres, benefit offices, the collapse of public services, trans rights, the right to strike, ever-expanding 12-week waiting lists, and on the darkest, most frustrating days, don't let the answers exist in places created by those who can afford a ticket. Let them exist not just in theatres, but in the hearts and minds of normal folk, so that in centuries to come, we'll look back on this and say that protest art wasn't dead, because it was protest art that won. Thank you. I'm going to do one final poem for you. I've got a few books with me. I've got some copies of my corpse book, which has got all the poems from my show, plus about 20 others, and then I've got some copies of my first book, which is called Burning Books, and it's about education and austerity government. And because all poets are doing it these days, I now take card. Apparently that's what all poets are doing in 2019. Cool. And I also, I'm going to have to leave in the break. I'm taking part in this, this is very boring to you, but I feel like I owe you an explanation. I'm taking part in a theatre festival in Leicester where I live, where in about 10 minutes I'm going to get given a theme, and then I have until 5 AM to write a play about it. So I'm a bit stressed about that, but I sort of hate when performers turn up and then leave after they've done their set, so I wanted to give you an explanation rather than seeming incredibly rude. This is my final poem. This is a piece from the show, and it's called We Must Be Careful Not to Do to Jeremy Corbyn what we did to Barack Obama and put him on a hero worship pedestal from which he can only be a disappointment. Which I don't think is a title which has aged well. Jeremy Corbyn will fix my bike. Jeremy Corbyn will ease my backache. Jeremy Corbyn will sort out my noisy neighbours. Jeremy Corbyn will remember my birthday. Jeremy Corbyn will buy me vouchers for a spa weekend. Jeremy Corbyn will ban anti-aging cream adverts and the ones where women eat yoghurt in their pants. Jeremy Corbyn will raise income tax, but only for my ex-boyfriends, and then he will spend it on setting up a dog-friendly poetry night in the East Midlands. Jeremy Corbyn will adequately fund the arts. Jeremy Corbyn will adequately fund education. Jeremy Corbyn will adequately fund the NHS. Jeremy Corbyn will sew up all of the moth holes in my favourite t-shirts. Jeremy Corbyn will chase up those unpaid invoices. Jeremy Corbyn will remind me to go to bed at 10. Jeremy Corbyn will suggest that I don't have that last glass of Reds. Jeremy Corbyn will stop me getting anxious on Sunday nights or any other time. Jeremy Corbyn will make the people at BBC Writers Room pick up my script. Jeremy Corbyn will stop men who work as accountants offering me constructive criticism at gigs. Jeremy Corbyn will do that for love. Jeremy Corbyn will create emerging artist programmes. At some point the artists actually emerge. Jeremy Corbyn will renationalise the railways. Jeremy Corbyn will spray my suede shoes before I wear them impatiently in the rain. Jeremy Corbyn will give me away at my wedding. and then lead the speeches, the first dance and the cutting of the cake. Jeremy Corbyn will marry me. Jeremy Corbyn will finance my one-woman Edinburgh show portraying the life of my blind, three-legged toy poodle and attends every performance to give it 5 stars on The Scotsman. Jeremy Corbyn will water my plants for me when I go away on holiday. Jeremy Corbyn will make Leonard Cohen immortal. Jeremy Corbyn will make Bruce Springsteen immortal. And Jeremy Corbyn will make Bob Dylan immortal and as good as he used to be. Jeremy Corbyn will successfully run a training event without the need of an interactive icebreaker. Jeremy Corbyn will take me on a cycling holiday around Croatia and we will ride in tandem. Jeremy Corbyn will follow me on Twitter. I've written an entire show about him and he still hasn't. Jeremy Corbyn will read this poem and Jeremy Corbyn will tell me that he likes it. Thank you very much.